Have you thought about getting into real estate investing, but have no idea where to start? On today's episode, we get to learn from Zachary Beach, who helps beginner real estate investors get started on the right foot. Let's jump in so that you can learn all of his secrets.
Are you a working professional but struggling to balance the workload of your career, family, obligations, and preparing for your financial future? If so, this podcast is for you. You've spent years learning your craft, and now it's time to focus on your financial future. This podcast will teach you what you need to retire wealthy and happy. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Retire Wealthy and Happy podcast. We've created this podcast to provide financial tips and tricks to help build your passive income and also provide methods you can use to protect your wealth so you can plan a better future for yourself and your family. We're grateful to have this podcast sponsored by Monument Real Estate Capital. Monument Real Estate Capital, helping you retire 10 years early through real estate investments.
On today's episode, we're excited to have Zachary Beach with us. A quick background about Zach. He is the CEO at Smart Real Estate Coach. He is a 3-time best-selling author. He has personally completed hundreds of real estate transactions and has mentored many others to do the same. He enjoys spending time outdoors with his wife and 2 kids. A little overview of what will be covered in today's episode. We're going to talk about what Smart Real Estate Coach is, why real estate is like running a business, and third, how to be happy while working on personal achievement. Zachary, thanks for being on the show today.
Hey, Ben, Earl, excited to be on. I think we're going to have a good time here today. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, man.
We appreciate you being here. So, Zach, will you take a few moments and just share a little bit more about your background and how you ended up where you are today?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Yeah, let's kind of start at the beginning there. I grew up with a single mother. I like to always say I was a poor kid growing up in a rich town. So that's kind of the reason why I consistently have a chip on my shoulder and what constantly drives me towards wanting to achieve, as much as I could possibly achieve. And so when I was about to go to college, the only reason why I actually went is because my teachers told me I couldn't. So I had really no direction going into school. So I did what anybody would do after they get a college degree is they then become a bartender. So I started bartending there for about 4 years, also personal trained. And then there was a point in time where I got, really burnt out. As you can imagine, I was burning the candle at both ends. I was staying up really late, serving drinks, and then I was waking up really early, training people in the morning. So what I do is I actually approached my partner, who's also my father-in-law. And I get the question all the time, how do you work with your in-laws? We could cover that if you want to talk about family business here today as well. And I approached him. I knew he was reinventing his real estate business at the time. He got crushed in 2008. And so now he was reinventing his business through what we know as creative financing now today, or buying and selling on terms. So I approached him and said, hey, I don't know if I'm going to like real estate. I got 0 real estate experience, but it's going to be better than what I'm currently doing. And it took me about 3 to 4 months. I ended up burning the boats and then just jumped full-fledged into real estate investing. And, 8 years later, kind of here it is.
And it sounds like you've been doing really well for yourself. Can you tell us and our listeners what is like your main focus as a real estate investor?
Yeah. And I would say the success is like in the eye of the beholder, right? When I get on many shows and spend a lot of time with people that are light years ahead of me. But when it comes to being able to find a systematic approach to constantly doing real estate deals, yes, I think I found it. And consistently are growing it. When it comes to, and I'm sorry, you mind asking me the question again?
What would you say is your main focus, at least right now, or the last couple of years as a real estate investor?
Yeah, well, the main focus when I first got started was to make sure that I had food on the table, because I kind of burned the ships. But as I started doing more and more real estate deals, then it's been about providing a different lifestyle to my family. As I said, I grew up with a single mother and a father that was estranged. So I was really just looking for a better lifestyle than what I currently had. And that's really what came about with real estate investing. And now, I've kind of shifted gears as we've built the portfolio and now we're helping people across the country build their own portfolio. So now my focus is more towards showing and sharing people through our community and our investment strategies on how to actually help people build their own real estate business at this stage.
Absolutely. And we love that you're doing that. That's why we had you on the show today. Now, this is kind of a broad question, but I want to ask it to you. You've had a lot of real estate experience. Are you willing to share either like a favorite deal you did or one that didn't go so well, so we can just to learn a little bit more about Zach and his real estate experience?
Oh, I mean, I could share with you, I could probably write an entire book on what not to do at this stage. And that's the reason why our agreements at this point in time are, a much longer than we originally first started, because each and every learning lesson is built into the agreement to protect us a little bit further. I'll start my first deal. In my first real estate deal, it took me about 3 or 4 months. And I have, so my two partners, my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, they both have extensive real estate experience, way beyond years of me. And I had them in the office next to me. And it still took me 6 months to get my first real estate transaction done. It just shows you like how far I needed to come. And during that process, I eventually ended up getting a transaction. It was a subject to deal is what it's known as. And really what that just means is that I went and acquired a property and kept the existing loan on it. So the title transfers and the existing loan remains attached to the seller and attached to the seller's credit. This deal, the reason why this actually transpired is this particular seller was a teacher, and he was going through a divorce. And this property had zero equity in the deal. He was about to start becoming behind on payments. So he didn't really have many options. This particular seller either could sell to somebody like me and my family, or he could go try to sell in the traditional market and have to come out of pocket in order to pay a realtor commission. So the option ended up becoming us. So when I went ahead and we acquired this, I believe we bought it for roughly like $185,000. This is a old 1700s house in central Massachusetts. So after we acquired it, we placed what we would call a tenant buyer in the house. So the way we exit our deals is also through creative, and we tend to do it through rent to own, or really a program that helps people that can't qualify for loans then be able to qualify for loan. So during that process, we placed a tenant buyer in the house. We collected a non-refundable deposit, which is typically how we get paid at the beginning. And then we started collecting cash flow. But during that time frame, the buyer started looking around the property, and she said that she noticed that there was lead paint in the house. So then she went and got a self-test. So then she self-tested that property. As you could probably know where I'm going here, we ended up needing to go ahead and de-lead that entire property. And not only de-lead the entire property, but then also house that particular tenant buyer for about a couple of weeks while we did that. Now, this particular lead job was $30,000 in order to do the entire property. So as you can imagine, picture this. So I am the son-in-law that's coming into the family business to start buying some real estate deals. The first deal I get, it cost the family $30,000. So it was a good but terrible experience at the same time. We learned a lot of lessons during that time frame. Luckily, because we buy creatively, there was a happy ending, I would say, at least for the real estate investor, us, which was eventually that buyer ended up defaulting, which is really unfortunate, but it just didn't seem like it was going to be a great fit at the end of the time. So we ended up selling it through traditional means, and then it ended up being a net positive, about $75,000 on that deal. But it was a lot of lessons learned. So that was one of the toughest deals, not only because it was my first, but because we had so many challenging situations that popped up during it with a default, which is rare for us. We get about 9 out of 10 people to the finish line. But also, I learned a lot of different lessons learned, and that could have, in most cases, that could have cost me my real estate investment career, because usually we use that first deal as like a launching pad, and that had some setbacks. So it took a lot of mental fortitude to make it through that deal.
Well, and it sounds like your family must really like you if you're still working with them after that one.
Yeah, I've known my in-laws since I was about 12 years old. That's when I actually started dating my wife. So we've been together for like 20 years now, which is awesome. Pretty insane to think of.
That's a great story in itself. And you were talking about many different real estate investing strategies with your first deal there: seller financing, rent to own option, a lot of great things that we will probably go into on some other future episodes. You've also made a couple comments about working with your family, and I wrote this question down maybe it's not necessary, but was it easy for you to get started working since it was a family business? I've done some research on you, so I think I know the answer to this question, but I want to hear from you. Like, was it easy or hard to get started with working with your family?
Yeah, depends on the day. No, it was. I'm not.
More like, was
Yeah,
it handed to you, Zach?
yeah. No, I know. I'm just thinking the best way to put this because I'm lucky that I had a family that was in a real estate investment, business. But it also makes it that much harder because the expectations are that much higher when you first get started. Because really, I mean, we didn't get any real estate deals handed to us. We all like ate what we killed. So we had to go out there and really put in the work in order to get deals done. Especially when me and my wife at the same time actually came on board as we left our bartending careers. And at that point in time, it brought a lot of strain to everyone. Like, as I was saying, my father-in-law was just revamping his business. My brother-in-law just joined him the year prior from his real estate agent career. He was in it for 8 years. And then all of a sudden, me and my wife are now coming over. So we had a huge amount of pressure, I think, on everybody, from my father-in-law to my brother-in-law to myself and my wife, in order to really make this work. So when I tell people my real estate career started with cold calling 40 to 60 hours a week in order to generate enough leads so our family could go do these real estate deals. It was a lot of pressure, I think, right at the beginning. And I think it molded us together as a team. And I think that's why we end up lasting, because that pressure was either going to separate everyone or it was going to bring everyone together. And at that point in time, we really got to link arms and we ended up doing about 4 to 10 deals per month after about, the first 6 to 8 months, and really started picking up steam. And when we entered into multiple different markets, and eventually became successful in that and right. But yeah, it was tough. And it still is challenging at times.
The reason I ask you that question, Zach, is because anybody, if they're willing to put the time in, can be successful in real estate. But it takes a lot of work, as you're demonstrating with your stories there. Like, it's challenging, and people sometimes think it's easy. They just show up, do a real estate deal to make millions of dollars. It doesn't go down like that. And I'm grateful to hear your personal experience and that you were willing to put it in the hard work, and you've done well for yourself. So we're grateful to have you on the show today to learn more from you. We're going to switch topics a little bit. Earl, will you talk about the next questions?
Sure. So we want to switch gears for just a second. I understand that you guys have started a coaching program of some kind. Is that correct?
Yeah, we the coaching business now, smartrealestatecoach.com, has been about 8 years now in the works. Yep.
Okay. Just for perspective, well, when I got out of college, I went right into, I did an internship and worked full time for a couple of property management, a couple development companies. But at some point, I came back to start up my own business. And one of the things I did to supplement my income was started working for a couple of coaching companies. And so I actually worked for Carlton Sheets Group.
Okay.
You guys are doing seller financing. You probably somewhere, either you or your father-in-law has a Carlton Sheets book in his bookshelf, I'm pretty sure. I coached for Robert Kiyosaki, Bob Allen, and then I've worked for several other people. So I have a little background in coaching. I know how much fun it can be. I also know how it can be quite challenging at sometimes too. The frustration of trying to find that button to push to get people to the idea Ben talked about, right? Oh, it's just easy. I'm gonna give you a little bit of money, and we're gonna get started, and you're gonna do it all for me. And talk a little bit about the challenges of a coaching program.
We face many challenges consistently, and the challenge more comes with the individual, as you were speaking of. And that's why our mission for Smart Real Estate Coach is to be known as the community that transforms dedicated people into wicked smart real estate investors. And the two main words that come in there is to transform, because most of us, especially I, have gone through a massive transformation in order in order to reach any type of level of success. And we know that our successful students have to do the exact same thing. They have to be willing and able to transform. But the second major piece is the dedication. It's the dedicated people. We can't transform everyone. We can transform dedicated people. Because as you were alluding to, Ben, and that is real estate can be simple, but it's not easy. It's not easy. It's going to take time, effort, perseverance, work. You're now becoming, in most cases, an entrepreneur. I know, I'm sure you've interviewed plenty of people on here that are specifically doing this for, say, lifestyle, which is, they're doing passive income. They're not really becoming entrepreneurs. They're taking the money in which they've earned from their W-2 or other companies and are now investing in real estate. Primarily people in our world that come into our community and invest in themselves are really looking to transform from a W-2 employee to a, say, solopreneur, and then a solopreneur to a CEO. And that's really where perseverance and challenge is really going to determine whether or not that person is going to be successful. Because our systems with creative financing have been proven for well over 8 years just with us. And we've seen, hundreds upon hundreds of deals come through our community. And the people that become successful in their own right are the ones that stick to it and consistently improve upon themselves a small percent day in and day out, and then never give up.
It's interesting. I worked for corporate real estate for a number of years, and was quite successful. Had a reasonably good career for, at one point I was the regional VP of a publicly traded REIT. I spent a lot of time in the corporate world, and when I decided to give up my corporate career and go off on my own, for me the idea, hey, I've just come here. I mean, I've been so successful at this. This is going to be easy, right? I know all of this stuff, and even today I go to the RIA clubs and I'm like, oh, here it goes again. They're talking about stuff I've known for years and years. But the honest truth is, the business for me really started to take off when I said I have to go back to the basics and do those things that I thought I was too good to do, and that's when it really took off for me. So
I can totally relate. I mean, we've had a couple businesses that we've grown, outside of, or I'd say more or less sister companies. And yeah, it's really easy to let your ego say, oh, well, I'll have to go back and do all this stuff again. But the truth is, anytime we start something new, we got to start right at ground level. Either we do, or we need to train somebody to go ahead and start at ground level. And if you have, of course, the capital and able to do that, you're going to tend to grow faster. But yeah, it's always interesting because as the CEO now of the company, I become more and more removed from the day-to-day of our students doing deals. And what I always love to do is I like to step back in and sit on some of our coaching calls and stuff, because it brings back the basics. So that way me as the CEO can now look at and see, how do we get the right resources to our students consistently now that we have more reach, so that way our students can do deals a little bit more quickly.
Perfect. Do you guys, I know most of it's probably around seller financing and creative strategies and that type of thing. Does the coaching program talk about other things, or is it mostly creative real estate?
Yeah, so we focus on three main strategies: acquisition strategies. We got seller financing, so buying properties with the seller's the bank. That's where you're able to get these deals with, say, 0% interest. I've done plenty of those deals. We have as a community as well. You have your subject to deals, which is probably the most misunderstood way of buying real estate, but maybe one of the most prevalent ways of buying real estate, that niche in today's market. And that's when you acquire a property where the loan remains attached to seller's credit. And then you have lease options or lease purchases, where it's really just the ability to control an asset at a specific price for a certain period of time and then be able to sell it. So those are the three ways that we buy. And then we always exit, either rent to own, or really helping buyers qualify for loans. And then also on seller financing as well. So once we have title, we have a long-term deal, we can actually now become the bank as well. So those are the strategies that we stick with. We don't teach anything other than that. this originally started, and I'm sure you have my partner at some point in time, but this originally started as a necessity and now it's a choice, right? It's like when you don't have cash and you don't have credit and you can't go to a bank to get a piece of property, creative financing is the way to go. But then once you have credit and you can go to a bank, now it's, do I actually want to personally be liable for any of these properties when I already have proven that I don't have to? So now that's where you see a lot of that transformation where we are today, which is we're just going to keep buying and selling real estate the way we've always done it, because now we're in a very risk averse position. The market is right for these types of creative strategies. And now it's just about growing our portfolio over the next 3 to 5 years while the market is in, transition. And that's going to set not only us up, but our students up for a decade, 2 decades worth of wealth.
Perfect. How do you, we've all seen the last, 8-9 months, interest rates have spiked way high. How has that affected your creative financing? Is it more opportunities now, do you think, or has it curtailed some of those opportunities?
I'm glad you brought this up because it's actually increased more opportunities. So anytime there's a transition in the market, especially uncertainty, creative financing becomes a really great opportunity. Because when there's a lot of certainty in the market, everyone can go the traditional route, go get a realtor, then go ahead and list it on the market because the market's appreciating. And now you collect your spread and you go ahead and you move, and then you move on to your next deal. When there's uncertainty, people are unclear about what the next couple months are going to be. So now they may be forcefully trying to sell in some circumstances. But let me peel back a little bit. So the two types of sellers, let's say on the acquisition side that we tend to help, are those that have real estate problems. So somebody that's in good financial standing, they have debt-free houses, maybe second home, maybe inherited a property. So that piece of real estate has now become a liability to them because they're taking care of it, but they don't necessarily need the money. So that's one route. The other person that we tend to help is somebody that's in a financial challenge. So these are people that are behind on payments, in arrears, have no equity in the deal, could be upside down in some circumstances. So when we saw the market shift, both those two opportunities were starting to skyrocket because people that now had debt-free houses, although they're in good financial standing, most are being persuaded by this fear factor that the media tends to generate, which is even though they are in good financial standings, they now feel as though they need to sell. So now we have an opportunity to help them get their price and sell. And then you also have the people that, with the interest rates rising, now can no longer sell their property at the price that they originally wanted because buyers cannot qualify for those loans or tend to not be able to qualify for those loans anymore because their debt to income ratio, and the interest rates. And then also everything that was happening from the COVID wave right now, which is all of these people that are behind on payments, or when the market actually went down in some areas, by a significant percentage, they have no equity in the deal. So now they have no ability to sell unless they want to come out of pocket in order to sell. And I don't care how wealthy you are, you never want to lose money on a real estate deal. So now we can help people at least break even and walk away. So we saw the seller side dramatically increase because there's more at bats for us. One of our main lead sources is expired listings. So expired listings started to go back up again. So now our students and our investors had more opportunities. And then we look on the buyer side. The buyer side with rising interest rates, now you have not only the normal buyers that we help, which are buyers that have bad credit scores that need time in order to qualify for loans, self-employed people that need 24 months worth of seasoning in order to become bankable. But now you also have everyone that could qualify for a loan 12, 18 months ago at a low interest rate, 2, 3, 4%. Now we're unable to qualify at the 7, 6, 7, and 8% range now. So now our buyer pool and our seller pool were growing at the same time. And we don't foresee that changing at any point in time.
Very cool. You, if one of our listeners said, hey, I really want to get started in real estate today, what do you think are some of those? Would you recommend they go hire a coach immediately? Would you recommend they try to figure out a way to do this on their own? What do you think is the best way for somebody to get started doing what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, my answer and this is the exact approach I would always take. Once I found a niche that I wanted to be a part of, because let's say they don't want to necessarily be a part of creative financing. Once I have a niche that I want to be a part of, and I foresee that I know I could be successful in, meaning I align with that niche. Secondly, then I would be looking for a coach or community of people that are doing deals actively today and that have been doing it significantly, say for the past 5, 10, 15 years, meaning they're way ahead of from a skill set and a knowledge perspective than I am. And then lastly, I'd put the blinders on, because the world that we live in, you could listen to me today talk about creative financing, and then you could have somebody else tell you about creative financing, tomorrow. And really, at the end of the day, it's about, do you align with, say, my values versus the others, or my systems and procedures versus the others, and can you be successful in that? And think that you can dedicate the next at least 3 to 5 years to this business, because it's not going to be easy. It's going to take time in order to develop the skill sets, the systems, and the mindset surrounding it, so you can be successful. That's the exact thing that I do consistently when I go look to improve upon any portion of my life. So at any given time, I have multiple coaches, or I'm a part of multiple masterminds. And although that may seem like a lot, what I really do is I hone in on where I'm trying to go from a goal set. And then I just find out who's already accomplished that. And then I go surround myself with that person. Because it's interesting that while we were taught in school, right? So you're taught in school that if you collaborate, or if you say copy somebody's work, that it's cheating. But once you become an entrepreneur, it's like the golden ticket to become successful. It's like you now go find people to collaborate with, and you find somebody that already has the answers. That way you can implement the answers that much more quickly. I'm sure people have said this, or you've heard people say something similar to this, and that is like, you can either take the long road or the toll road, because the information and the community and the map, it's gonna cost you an investment in yourself, but you're gonna be able to get there significantly faster. Or you can go out there and try to do it on your own and make every single mistake that we've already made, and we can stop you from doing it. And then it'll take you much longer to reach that success or that goal of yours. So I would always recommend the coaching route, assuming, again, this is the big asterisk, assuming you pick the right coach and community that'll lead you to success.
Earl,
Perfect. And that leads me to my next question. Go ahead, Ben. You got something?
Well, this is a little out of line, but I really like what he just said, so I want to comment on it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You were talking about the system teaching people to stay in their lane and not copy people. Obviously, we learned that in school. And
Yeah.
I just, for our listeners, if you didn't catch that, in order to be successful, collaboration is extremely important. There's obviously people like Zach and his coaching program. There's other programs you can look into. If you want to be successful in this world, don't do what they taught you in school and keep your blinders on. You need to build your network and find other people that you can learn from, so you can truly be successful. Sorry to cut you off, Earl.
No, Ben, I can directly connect hundreds of thousands of dollars today and millions of dollars of future revenue to one mastermind that I'm currently a part of, because it is the people in the network that I'm a part of that is generating business consistently and is making it that much easier for revenue to come into our company. So that is like, if you could take away anything from this podcast here today, and that is like, get yourself a part of a network, and I want to poo-poo like RIAs, because I speak at a lot of RIAs, I speak at a lot of meetups. But make sure you are surrounding with people that are actually doing the deals, not just there to learn. Because I go into so many of those types of environments, and there's like, who's doing real estate deals? And it's like 3 people raise their hand, and you're like, whoa, guys, we got to get into a room where there's more than just 3 people doing real estate deals. And I think a lot of that comes from what you're talking about with shiny object and things of that sort. So I digress.
No problem. Last thing I want to touch, at least on this topic, talk a little bit about the transformation in the coaching industry, so to speak, and what are you seeing out there as far as differences in coaching programs? Like I said, I've been involved in several of them. Some of them I thought were really, really good, and some of them I thought you paid a lot of money for something that you could get online, so to speak. And then how does somebody go about finding the right coach?
Yeah, a lot to unpack, but we'll and if I miss anything, just back me up. So I think especially I think since COVID, in my opinion, COVID sped up the information, like coaching world. because every single person that was doing some sort of real estate, and I'm just going to stick to real estate investing because you could really take this to any other industry as well with information marketing. And really that's kind of where it starts. I think it sped up the process because a lot of real estate investors were looking for new ways in order to create revenue for their family to live and be virtual because there was no other option. So you saw a lot of people that necessarily didn't have the credentials teaching people. And that's really where you're starting with a faulty foundation. So if you're learning information from somebody that's done like 3 to 5 deals and they haven't been through a lot of different real estate transactions, then the information they're giving you could be correct in some circumstances, but could be very faulty in other circumstances, which then, as you can imagine, leads to more challenges down the road with people that are actively trying to buy and sell real estate. So I'd say that is one thing that we've seen a lot of, which is just unqualified people now becoming coaches. And they're able to do so in such a way because of the social media world that we live in, which is they can put on a really good front to say, hey, I'm doing all this awesome stuff. I can rent the plane. I can take pictures in front of it. I can say I've done all these things. But when it actually comes down to coaching, now coaching is different than mentorship, in my opinion. Mentorship or advisory is like, you call me, you tell me what problems you have, I give you advice. Coaching, and this is what I learned from that book, A $1 Trillion Coach, that talks from Bill Campbell, who is the coach for like Google and all those huge high-tech companies. And coaching is about sharing and locking arms and showing people their blind spots consistently so they can evolve more quickly. So that's just one component of it. So when we look at our coaching world, what we have found to be successful is that we literally lock arms with people and we structure it in such a way that everybody is revenue sharing on the real estate deal. So now it incentivizes the coach and our team to go out there and help you find deals, execute deals, and then make sure that deals are profitable throughout the course of the time of the actual transaction versus just telling you to go do something. So that's why we've seen a lot of success. Is one of the main reasons why people have come to our community is because they felt as though there was a lack of support. So that's where we found success. So what we found the opposite is because everybody, or there's large groups of people out there selling information into, say, large group coaching programs where they're now selling a course and then a group mentorship where they show up once a month. There's a massive amount of information that's happening with not a large amount of execution. And that's where we're starting to see a major disconnect when it comes to people saying, hey, coaching doesn't work. And that's like, yes, coaching does work if you're able to execute on the information that the coach is telling you, so that way you can now bypass a lot of the challenges that are faced. So I know I tried to cover a little bit of everything that you asked about, but if I missed any particular part, Earl, let me know and I'll go back.
No, I appreciate it. How do you go about finding the right coach then?
Yeah, so I actually did this on another podcast. I have a coach of ours that actually has a podcast, and he asked me this exact question. That is, number one, I do a lot of research. So if I'm going to go look for a coach, I want to, number one, determine, again, which niche I want to be a part of. And then I'm going to start looking for what mastermind or coach is actively doing the thing that I want them to do or that I want to do. And they've been doing it for a while or a long time and have proven track record. So I do research. I start looking at, I usually pick up about 3 to 4 particular coaches in that industry. And then what I do is I actually set up sales calls with them. And I understand sales calls because we do sales calls. So I let them, then I walk through their pitch. I want to hear their pitch to me on what their main difference is between everyone else to make sure that they have the strength that's my weakness, right? It's like, because we could come to real estate investing, and if my strength is being able to make phone calls and my scripts are really good, which is the foundation of most, at least in our world, real estate investing, then I don't need a coach that is fundamentally built everything around scripts. No, I may need him to be fundamentally strong in deal structuring. And that's what I'm bringing. That's what I want to have them bring to the table. So I go through those pitches. And once I go through all those pitches, then I'll kind of lay out all the information and say, all right, which one's going to be the best fit for me? And ideally I'd try to get some proof of concept as well. If you can, I'd get to try to speak with some of their students or former business partners or something like that. Or worst case scenario, just make sure that I'm really diving into their reviews and all of that in order before I go ahead and make that purchase or that investment. And once I do, though, this is the most important part of the entire thing. Once I do, then I commit. Now I'm dedicated to their system and their process. I don't go look for 4 other coaches anymore. I now set a time frame and a goal that I'm now focused on with this coach, and try to keep away that shiny object as much as possible. We're all guilty of it, but I try to keep away as much as possible. So now I can let their process and procedures guide me before I now make any assumptions on whether it's working or not. Hope that makes sense.
Really quickly, I'll share. When I first got started, and people were always, I can't believe I just spent $8,000 or $10,000, whatever the figure was, right? I can't believe that Kiyosaki took this, and now I don't have any money to invest. Yeah. And in the beginning, I was like, oh, I feel so bad for these people, and so on and so forth. And as the time went on, I finally learned to, and I really believe this. They did you such a favor, because if they took every dime that you have to invest, you have no choice now but to go in and learn to do this correctly, right? You have to go in and network and get business partners, and you have to do it correctly, because the little bit of money that you spent for a coach was going to evaporate pretty quickly anyway. So anyway, I believe wholeheartedly in the idea of getting coaches, and I think most people will get much further ahead by doing that. So,
Zach, well, Earl, you brought up if you guys don't mind, I just want to share one story, because I know this is the retire wealthy and happy and podcast, and we had a recent student that came to us. He was a government contractor, and he was approaching his retirement, and he did not foresee his retirement to look very pretty. And this guy's worked for the government for 30 years. So he came and he invested in one of our top level programs, and he did it in stages. We have a couple different ways in order to get involved. He did it in stages, and then now he's at the highest level. The guy now has done 5 deals, all creative finance deals. So he didn't go to a bank. He didn't put down large down payments. He didn't go personally guarantee any debt. He's done 5 deals, each of them worth over $100,000 a piece. So these types of transactions, so seller financing, where you're getting sellers to be your bank, or taking over current existing loans that are in the low percentages that nobody else can get access to. It's all about learning the skill set and the systems and executing on those, because now this gentleman, even if he left our community today, would know exactly how to do those types of transactions for the rest of his life. Which means that not only his retirement is being built now, he just actually retired we're recording this in May. He just retired about 2 weeks ago. He he controls his destiny for the rest of his life, because he's now learned these skill sets, has the systems and procedures in place. So when somebody comes to invest in like a real coaching program that has proven results, it's about the long-term results, because you completely dramatically change the perspective on how now you can generate wealth and money consistently. It's not just about the 6 months or the 24 months or whatever you're a part of a program. It's about what you can do then and after. It dramatically changes people's lives.
Thanks, man.
Zach, you're providing a ton of value for our listeners. And one of the things that we talk about on this podcast is ways that people can create passive income for themselves to retire wealthy and happy. And the reason I'm bringing that up right now is because your coaching program sounds amazing, and it's focusing on certain types of real estate investing strategies. And I want to point out to our listeners that, and I'm asking this as a question, Zach, I would consider what you're teaching as active real estate investing strategies. Would you agree with that statement?
I would 100% agree that at the beginning, when you're starting a creative financing business, this is an active business model that eventually you can transition into a passive. But yes, okay, absolutely, definitely more active than passive.
How much time should somebody be expecting to put in actively with your real estate investing strategies to be successful? How long does it take?
I can give you some averages, but know this, and that is, anytime you're starting any business, is two things are going to happen. Either you have the time you're going to put into the business, or you're going to put money into the business. So we tend to train our students first and foremost on how to put their time into the business, learning the skill sets, learning the knowledge, setting up the systems and procedures. So that way, eventually they can fund the business with their real estate transactions and grow out their portfolio and move from solopreneur to CEO, if that makes sense. So when a new student comes in, specifically one that has zero real estate experience, which is most, they're going to put in around 10 to 12 hours a week into the business each week in order to eventually generate about a deal a month.
So if somebody right now was a W-2 employee and they wanted to do your real estate investing strategies, would you recommend that they do it cold turkey, or should they transition slowly, like keep their W-2, start working with you, build up some projects, and then eventually leave their W-2?
Yeah, the latter. We primarily will train people to say, all right, you got your normal lifestyle, right? Most are approaching us because they're either they want to eliminate their W-2 because they don't love it, right? Or are looking to create a different lifestyle. So it's like, first, let's get you to a point where you can eclipse your salary. So let's start setting some goals and some timelines where we can teach how to buy and sell real estate to a point where you can eventually eclipse your salary. Then once you do that, now we'll create a game plan in order to have you execute and make the leap. Now, some we've helped people retire in 9 months. Others, it's taken 3, 4, 5 years. It's all going to depend upon tolerance level, right, to risk, and also your current overhead, and then the amount of deals that you can generate during that time frame.
A lot of great points there. And what I'm taking from this, Zach, is that regardless of what real estate investing strategy somebody wants to do, it sounds like they should be having a solid plan if they want to be an active real estate investor. If they have a job right now, they should look for a coach or a mentor in the specific niche that they want to do. They should put together a plan. They should have goals. They should do it structured so that they don't jump off of their W-2 and end up financially broke in a couple months, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 100%. And we also give what we call free strategy calls as well. So as you start communicating with us, potentially after this podcast, you can book a free strategy call where we can actually walk you through. You can tell us about where you want to be, how much money you want to generate, and we could create a specific game plan and really point you towards the resources that would be most likely to help you get there.
Awesome.
Ben, really quickly, I had I think it was one of my very first coaching students got put in my schedule. I opened it up. The guy literally said to me, well, I just paid the money. He says, I've got to pay my rent in like 3 days, and I need you to help me find a deal. I said, well, yeah, I don't have any money. He was totally unprepared, and just, hey, I've just quit my job. I'm ready to start doing real estate full time. And it was hard to not smile a little bit. It got so bad early on. Robert Kiyosaki actually wrote a book while I was coaching for him that was entitled Before You Quit Your Job, because so many people got so excited about the coaching program that, hey, I'm just going to quit my job. I'm going to go get out of the rat race. So it's really important that you put together a plan before you do that. So
yeah, on today's episode, we're talking with Zach about his real estate coaching program called Smart Real Estate Coach. We're talking about what needs to be done if you want to be an active real estate investor and putting together a plan. And I also want to talk to Zach because I know he's got some thoughts on this about how to be happy while working on personal achievement, because we're talking about building up retirement, working for yourself. There's a lot of things that would drive you to do that. So Zach, the question I want to ask you is, why does somebody need to understand who they are today before they can decide who they want to become? Does that question make sense?
No, it makes total sense. I mean, this is like the whole thing. And I say this because me personally, as I've gone through, being a business owner, real estate investor, it's all been self-discovery, like the whole thing, because each and every challenge in which I've faced, I now have to look in the mirror and say, how do I make this decision? And sometimes, like, how do I not completely fall apart? Because a lot of this comes with self-induced pressure, right? But also as you're growing and growing a business, but also you have other things going on in your life. Like, I have a wife, I have 2 young kids under the age of 6. There's a lot of people count on you. So when you're making these decisions and trying to improve your lifestyle, there's a lot of pressure that comes with it as well. And anybody that's listening to this, I'm sure they can understand that, whether you have a W-2 or you're a real estate investor. So it's all self-discovery. And I think what comes about is that as you go through self-discovery, at least this has been for me, and I've gotten to know myself better, I know how to make better decisions because I now understand on how I believe I should make those decisions, because I've made, say, similar or hard decisions in the past. And they've given me a certain result, good or bad, right? Here's the challenge that happened. Here's the decision I made. And here's the result I got. Now, if that was a bad decision, it's all right. That was a challenge I faced. That's a lesson learned. How do I apply that to the next challenge that pops up? Or, hey, I got good results. Let me try to test that again. And now if I get another similar results, well, now that's a principle I can live by. So it's just that whole entire self-discovery is what then allows you to build that foundation, and then you get to build to the next. I always like to do this though, and this is something that's been taught to me from mentors, and that is, although I'm discovering myself now, I'm acting as if I'm the person who I want to become. Because we're all in training. So if I want to be a billionaire, I need to start making decisions now as if I'm a billionaire, because then it becomes inevitable that I get there. But if I'm making decisions today as if I make $100,000 a month or $100,000 a year, and I'm expecting to get these massive results in the next 10 years, 20 years, then those don't add up. So the self-discovery eventually leads to, you now having the confidence to start acting as if you're the next person, the person you want to become. Because once we become that person, that's when we start attracting the things as if, that person gets. So like if you study a lot of like quantum physics and things of that sort, we only attract the things that we are. We don't attract the things that we want. So we got to get to where we are at that level of frequency, that those things that we truly want come to us.
Zach, you have a ton of value that you're providing to myself and to our listeners. I wish we had more time because I've got a bunch of other questions I'd love to be asking you. What I'm taking away from today, Zach, is that you have a lot of passion for what you're doing, which is probably why you make a great coach. It sounds like your program could be really helpful for people if they want to get started as an active real estate investor, specifically with creative real estate investing strategies. So we're going to have a lot of links and stuff in the show notes for our listeners if they want to check out your coaching program. I want you to give a quick shout out. You've written a couple books. Will you tell us about your books real quick?
Yeah, so we've written a couple of books. I've co-authored them with my 2 partners. Real Estate on Your Terms was our first Amazon best-selling book. That's really the one so today I'll make sure that everybody gets a copy of that. We'll actually ship it out to you for free. That's the one that really goes in depth into our business model, our stories and our business model, with a bunch of case studies and all that as well. But we also wrote a book, which was a collaborative effort with a lot of other real estate coaches, called The New Rules of Real Estate Investing. And then we also came out, which we reached Amazon bestseller in marketing, with a book called Sell with Authority for Real Estate Investors. So we've kind of covered the gamut. But if I'm listening to this podcast today, I would start with the basics, which would be, what's creative financing? How do I incorporate it into my investment strategy? Or how do I use this investment strategy in order to get me to my end goals? And that's tons of case studies in there, so it makes everything a lot more collaborative. I know we didn't even cover it today, but when we exit our deals, we have a trademark 3 payday system. So you get paid 3 times on every deal. And that really is what helps people generate enough income in order to go ahead and make that leap.
Well, that's a good hook to get people to come talk to you right there.
Yeah. So let me give them the book if you're good, which is all you got to do is go to wickedsmartbooks.com/retirewealthy. That's wickedsmartbooks.com/retirewealthy. It's absolutely free. We'll get you a nice little bundle package, ship it out to you at our cost, and that way you can start investing in real estate.
That's very nice of you, Zach. Thank you for sharing that. In respect of time, we got a couple questions we asked everybody, and then we'll wrap up. Okay.
Sounds great.
So we call this the final 4. And this one, I'm going to assume that you're going to tell us that it's one of your own books, but we ask everybody what their favorite business book is.
No, I came prepared. I have two books that I wanted to share with. No, it's not my books. The two books that I'm listening to right now that are very focused on business are, number one is Masters of Scale, which is by Reid Hoffman. He's the one that created LinkedIn and grew LinkedIn. It's a really good book. If you listen to an Audible, it like has all the interviews with people, which is people that have scaled to a massive level. But then also a book that I live by, which is Master the Rockefeller Habits. Another great book by Vern Harnish. And it's all about how to grow and scale your business as well. So get the right real estate investment strategy with the right business growth strategy. And now you can go ahead and create as big a portfolio as you want.
Perfect. Tell us a little bit about what brings you happiness.
Yeah, it's a lot of things. I would say, I mean, if I just, when I hear the word happiness, there's a couple of things that come to mind, but the first word that actually comes after happiness for me is growth. I am a big fan of growing both personally, professionally, monetarily. And it's not necessarily because of accumulation, but more of because of where it's gonna bring me, really, and how big it's gonna stretch me in order to get there. I would say my biggest fear is not failure. My biggest fear is that I won't live up to what I'm supposed to accomplish. And I think Les Brown talks about a lot, where he says, like, when you're on death's bed and all the ghosts of like your accomplishments I could have been show up at your door, and they're like, why couldn't you have like helped me become me? I think that's what drives me. So I'm happiest when I'm growing, both as, again, a business owner, as a father, as a husband, as a friend. It's constant improvement brings me happiness.
Perfect. We get mixed results with this, but most of the people say, I don't think I'm going to retire. But tell us a little bit about what your retirement looks like to you. What's your ideal retirement?
Yeah, I'm in like my earning years right now, being in my early 30s. So I haven't even thought about retirement. What I get too many things to accomplish here. And really, but if I could, snap my fingers, I would say that I don't, not only a portfolio of real estate, but a portfolio of businesses that were dramatically impacting not only, North America, but the world in a positive direction. If that's the case, then I'd be happy to retire.
Perfect. I'm getting a lot closer to you than you, I think, and I can start to visualize it. I'm not spend my whole life on the beach, but I might spend my whole life on the back of a motorcycle. So,
all right.
Anyway, what do you think is the best way to give back?
From my standpoint, it's knowledge. I think if we can educate from many different perspectives. So I know we only covered a small portion of my story, but I like to, if we can educate the younger generations, not only through, like, I'd say most importantly through entrepreneurship, I think they would make a dramatic change in not only the United States, but I would say, globally, because I truly believe that entrepreneurship and small to mid-sized businesses are the ones that are going to make a dramatic change in this world. So giving back would be through all my lessons learned, specifically in, business, to give them to younger generations.
Perfect. Ben's going to put all your information on the show notes so that people know how they can find you online. We appreciate you being here with us today. Great content. We think that our listeners will get a tremendous amount from what you've shared with us today. We really appreciate your time, Ben.
Yeah, thank you.
Just as a quick summary for our listeners, on today's episode, we talked about what is Smart Real Estate Coach and why you might be able to use it in your own investing strategy, why real estate is like running a business and what you need to be doing if you want to be an active real estate investor. And we also talked about how to be happy while working on personal achievement. We want to thank you for joining us on Retire Wealthy and Happy podcast, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks for being with us, Zach.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much, Zach. We appreciate it.
Hope you got value from this episode. And if you have a minute, then take the time to leave an honest written review for the podcast, because we take those reviews seriously and it'll help us serve you better on the next episodes. And most importantly, be sure to start taking action so you can control your financial future today.